Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, Be'ah Daf Tesvav. We begin 7 lines from the top of the Amud. May one send a gift to his friend on Yom Tov? Mishnah says, yes you can, provided it's a small scale, not with a group of people where it appears like they're going to the marketplace. So if it fits the proper decorum of Yom Tov, that's okay. Now, what type of material? What's the item that you're going to send? We had a machlokes, could be a shamai. It needs to be something which is roi for today, as the Mishnah says, ein mishalchen b'Yom Tov ela monos, ready-made food which is meant for Yom Tov. Whereas it's going to be a silal, doesn't have to be something which is going to be consumed today. It needs to be something which is edible, something which is useful. But as long as it has some use, even though it's not meant for today, you can send it on Yom Tov. So Mishnah tells us you can send clothing, material. Avaloi sandal hamesumar. You can't send this specific type of sandal which has many pegs, nails on it. Why not? Sandal hamesumar, my time maloi. What's wrong with this? Sandal mishamasa shehaya digmar Shabbos explains that the Chacham disallowed use of this sandal on Shabbos or Yom Tov on account of a story, an unfortunate event which happened when there were Yisrael hiding in a cave. They were hiding from the oppressing regime, and they heard some commotion outside, and they thought the oppressors were pursuing them, discovered their whereabouts, and they scrambled and they trampled upon each other with these pegged, nailed sandals and injured and killed each other. So they made it takana not to wear it on Shabbos or Yom Tov. So since this item cannot be worn on Yom Tov, it should not be sent as well, because if you're going to send it, people will think, well, you can wear it as well. So this thing is not meant to be used on Yom Tov, cannot be sent. Sandal hamesumar asur lenali. Although you may not wear this sandal, but you could move it. It's a kli. So wearing is an asur, but using it is mutar. Asur lenali, you may not wear it mishamasa shehaya on account of that unfortunate event. However, mutar you may use it, you may move it around, because it's a kli. It's not muktzah. Perhaps it's something intended for Issa, because wearing is asa, but it's like a kli, it's like a hammer, which you may use for other purposes as well. It's not considered a useless item. How does a buyer know this? Perhaps there's room to think that if a article of clothing like a shoe or sandal cannot be used for its intended purpose, perhaps it's called muktzah machmaskufa, totally useless, and cannot be moved at all. The raya is from our Mishnah, the Mishnah says, ein mishalchen. On Yom Tov, you may not send this sandal over to a friend, because it can't be used on Yom Tov. And if you would contemplate that this thing is actually a muktzah, look, if you can't even move it, you need to tell me that you may not send it. You can't even move it. Apparently, no, it's a kli, you can move it around, but just don't wear it. Mishnah says you cannot send an unfinished shoe, an unsewn shoe. Pshita, of course. Why would you think you can send it? It's worthless. It's something that can't be used on Yom Tov. It's not right for anything. We're speaking about a shoe which is although not properly sewn, but it's being held together with pegs, with clips. So perhaps since it can provide some improvised temporary use, it's considered roi. No, it's not really a proper shoe. There's no point in sending it. Rabbi Yehuda nor a white-colored shoe, undyed. Tanya b'demata b'shachar allows sending a black shoe, v'isa b'lovan, not a white shoe. Mishat tzorach beitzah hagir. You need to use a clump of this gear mud, this black mud used to dye the leather. So since it needs its craftsman, this fellow to actually dye it, and at this point, it's not something that somebody would use. There's no point in sending it on Yom Tov. Rabbi Yehuda says even a black one can't be sent because it needs to be smoothed out and sanded out. There's no machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. Marki Asrei, one man Amma was reflecting his makim. Marki Asrei, the other shita, was simply expressing the minig of his makim. What do you mean? Ba'asrei the mar. In Rabbi Yehuda's location, Bisrol Sachas, the flesh side of the skin, was facing downward inside the shoe, in which case the outer surface of the leather of the skin of the shoe was smooth. So if it's black, it's finished. You don't have to smooth it out any further. Whereas in Rabbi Yossi's locale, Bisrol El, the flesh facing surface of the leather was facing outward, so the exterior surface of the shoe was raw and bumpy, and it to smooth out. So unless he does that before Yom Tov, this shoe is as yet useless and cannot be sent around on Yom Tov. Zakal. This is the general rule as far as gifting on Yom Tov. Anything which can actually benefit from on Yom Tov can be sent as well. Rav Sheshes Shorul Rabban. Rav Sheshes allowed the Rabban tefillin b'yamatava to send around tefillin on Yom Tov. Abaye turns to him. Mishnah clearly says you can only send something which can use on Yom Tov, and we know that tefillin are not meant to be worn on Yom Tov. Rashi says tefillin is a sign of a bond between a Yid and Hashem, as opposed to during Shabbos and Yom Tov, where the Zman itself is the biggest ois, the biggest flag, the biggest sign of our commitment to Hashem, our relationship with Hashem. You don't wear tefillin on Shabbos and Yom Tov, so what's the heter to send it on Yom Tov? Answers the Gemara, no. We have to correct our interpretation of the Mishnah. Hachikam, the Mishnah simply means as follows: Kol shena oisen by bechoil, any item that can provide use and benefit during the weekday, so it's a finished, completed item. Mishachna, so Yom Tov can be sent on Yom Tov as well, but even though it's not something which is going to be worn today and used today, that's mutter as well. Why? Why is it Tzerech Yom Tov? So Taisus in Shabbos explains, you're giving the recipient hana, you're providing simchas Yom Tov. Giving him a gift generates simcha. It gladdens his heart. Look, I received a gift which I can use tomorrow, the next day, even though I'm not going to use it today, but it's a finished item. Tefillin, clothing, etc. Even though I'm not going to use it today, but it generates simchas Yom Tov, and that in itself, to make you happy on Yom Tov, that's called tzarech Yom Tov. Interesting to point out that the Hagoras Hashri brings a right from our Mishnah that you meant to wear tefillin al chol hamoed. Why? The Mishnah says you can send kelim. This is on towards the bottom of Yudal and Beis. Shalchan kelim, etc., etc. Ve'en l'tzorech hamoed, because it's providing shimush on moed. It's for moed use. Now the Gemara says you can send tefillin on Yom Tov, or the first day Pesach Yom Tov. You can send tefillin. Why? Because although you're not going to use it today, it can provide use during the weekdays. But the Mishnah says that it has to be l'tzorech hamoed. How is tefillin tzorech hamoed? Says the Goyis Hashri v'chol hamoed. So apparently, tefillin are meant to be worn chol hamoed. The Bahag disagrees. He says l'tzorech hamoed does not mean that the tefillin itself will provide hana on the moed and chol hamoed. The fact is that sending a gift gladdens the heart, is misameach, the recipient, and that's called tzorech hamoed. Actually, it's a Tosfos in Moed Katan that goes through both sides of this shaila, whether or not you wear tefillin on chol hamoed. And the question really revolves around the point of ois. Tefillin provides ois, that sign of connection between Yid and Hashem, and Shabbos and Yom Tov has its own ois. The question is chol hamoed, since really you can do malacha chol hamoed. The question is, to what extent is it an expression of an ois? So on the one hand, you can say it's not like Yom Tov, it's not like Shabbos, and you have to wear tefillin. On the other hand, Tessa says the fact is you have matzah on Pesach. The fact you're eating the sukkah on Sukkot. The fact is that you generally refrain from malacha and chol hamoed. Perhaps that is enough to provide that ois between a Yid and Hashem, and no tefillin should be worn. Of course, there are many minhagim regarding wearing tefillin on Chol Hamoed. Continues the Gemara. Amar Abai, tefillin. Once we're discussing the concept of tefillin, allow me to give you another halacha regarding tefillin. This tefillin was arriving from a trip. Tefillin wearing tefillin. It's Erev Shabbos, and suddenly he sees sunset. It's Shabbos. You're not meant to wear tefillin on Shabbos. So what does he do? He's still on the road. He doesn't want to leave the tefillin behind and allow them to get lost and be rezoyin. He can place his hand on his tefillin to conceal it from public view until he arrives home and then takes it off. So although he's walking through the street and he's carrying the tefillin, Rashi explains, it's not really a direct act of carrying. It's derech malbush. It's, so to speak, kla'achar yad. And therefore, on account of zilzal of the tefillin, of bizayin of the tefillin, to salvage his tefillin, he can go ahead and continue wearing them until he gets home, as long as he keeps it private. This way, you don't run the risk of creating an impression that you could put on tefillin on Shabbos and you have to hide it and get home. He's sitting in the Beis Medrash. In those days, the Beis Medrash was out in the field. Tefillin b'rosh, wearing tefillin. And suddenly Shabbos arrives. Here as well, cover the tefillin until he gets home and takes it off. So according to Abaye's version, you can wear them all the way until you get home and then take them off. Masiv Rav Huna Breder of Ika, listen to this price. He's arriving from a journey. Wearing tefillin. Suddenly it's Shabbos. So he covers his tefillin until he arrives to that first house within the city next to the chayma. At the first possible opportunity, he's meant to remove his tefillin and deposit it into that first home where it's safeguarded. He has no heter to bring it actually all the way to his home. Likewise, he's sitting in the yeshiva, v'kiddush al yom, Shabbos arrives, so he covers his tefillin until he arrives to that first home where he can place the tefillin for safekeeping, but he can't actually carry it all the way home. As opposed to Abaye, who allows you to carry it all the way home. Like Kasha, the answer is it depends on the circumstance. The Beitzah, which says deposit it at the first possible opportunity, speaking where it's probably safeguarded it. It's a secure location. Whereas Abaye is speaking where it's not a safe place to keep tefillin. So there's no point in leaving them there. Rather, wear them until you get home. If it's not going to be secure there, why discuss a case where he's actually wearing the tefillin and you allow him to continue wearing the tefillin until he gets to a safe location? This halacha would apply even if the tefillin are sitting on the floor. So he encounters tefillin on Shabbos or Yontiv on the floor. But if it's not a safe location, you can pick them up, put them on, and walk with them through the Rishus Rabbim. So it's not only if you're already wearing it from before Shabbos, you can actually initiate on Shabbos as well to save this tefillin from bizayin. Listen to this Mishnah, Mesechas Eruvin. Hamoed say tefillin. If one encounters tefillin out in the open, machnis and zug, he can bring them back home. He can transport them to a safe location, one pair at a time, even on Shabbos. So it's lav dafka if you're actually wearing them before Shabbos, they would just allow it to continue wearing them. If it's a place which is not minta, which is not shomer, you can even pick them up and transport them on Shabbos. Says Malay Kasha, it depends what circumstance we're speaking about. Remember we had that stira between Abaye who says, carry them all the way home, wear them all the way home, and the Beitzah says, drop them at the first house. The Beitzah was speaking where that first house is a properly secured and safe location. Mintra machmas ganvi, safe from ganovim, umachmas kalvi, from dogs and animals. In that case, he meant to deposit them in that home. Why take them further? As opposed to Abaye who says, take them all the way home, is speaking, the mintra machmas kalvi. Was speaking that any other location other than his home is certainly protected from dogs and creatures and animals, but not protected from ganav, might come and tamper with the tefillin. And therefore, Abaye says, take them all the way home, where it's certainly secure and safe. What's the chiddush of Abaye? Why would I think otherwise? Perhaps I would say, Roiv listingly Yisrael Ninu. You're afraid about ganavim? In a Jewish community, most ganavim are Yisrael. And Yisrael, even a robber, the Yiddish heart, he's not going to degrade the tefillin. Kamashman, says Abaye, no, v'choishesh. And something might happen with them, and perhaps the Ganav will think he's hiding some treasures inside the tefillin. In any case, don't rely on the good nature of the Jewish robbers. Kamash Milan, take them all the way home, where they're safe from all external elements. So we have three possible locations, three possible scenarios. We have where it's shomer, completely safeguarded from ganavim, from dogs. In that case, leave them alone. There's no heter to pick them up on Shabbos. Or if you happen to be wearing them, deposit them at that first opportunity, a place which is shomer l'gamr. If we're dealing with tefillin which are totally exposed to elements, animals and people, in that case, of course, take them and hide them. You can even pick them up and put them on Shabbos. Transport them through the street till you get to a safe location. In a case where you have one element, not the other, it's partially secure. Secure from klovim, from animals, but not from ganavim. And even if it's a case where we could assume it's Jewish robbers that we're speaking about, in that case, says the Gemara, you can still keep them on you until you get to a secure location. But in this case, where it's already partially secure, right, it's only exposed to the ganavim and not to the klovim, although when you're wearing them, we allow you to continue wearing them till you get to a secure location. But if it's sitting on the floor, that much we don't allow. To go and pick them up, initiate, put them on and carry them, since it's already partially secure, to actually pick them up and put them on, which really creates that impression that you can wear tefillin on Shabbos, etc. That much we don't allow. So if it's fully exposed, fully hefker, anything's allowed. If it's fully secure, leave it alone. If it's partially secure, if you're wearing them, continue wearing them. Otherwise, leave them alone. Hadran lach beya. Continues the Mishnah. Yom Tov shecholius erev Shabbos. Yom Tov falls out erev Shabbos on a Friday. Lo yivasha betchila mi Yom Tov l'Shabbos. So he wants to prepare for Shabbos. Can you go ahead and cook Shabbos food on Yom Tov, on Friday? Lo yivasha betchila mi Yom Tov l'Shabbos. You can initiate Shabbos preparations on Yom Tov. What then? He can go ahead and cook some food for Yom Tov's sake. If he has some left over, Shabbos. Right? Then it's for Shabbos. In fact, even Lechatchila can do that. As long as you're not initiating a new dish, a new pot, but to enlarge the quantity. For the sake of Shabbos, that's mutter. We have another solution to this problem. Erev Tavshila. He can go ahead and establish a tavshil, cook something before Yom Tov, and set that aside as his erev tavshil, and rely on that to enable him to cook for Shabbos' sake, even on Yom Tov. Now, we're meant to know that before we get involved in erev tavshil, there are really two concerns here. Firstly, how can you go ahead and cook on Yom Tov for a day which isn't Yom Tov? Echel Nefesh is mutter for today, but not for Shabbos, not for a weekday. So the Gemara elsewhere discusses this. The Gemara says that, according to one opinion, we apply the concept of hoyel. Hoyel means, if you know you don't need this food today, but perhaps some guests might arrive. You'll have to feed these unexpected guests the food that you're cooking today. So in our Torah, we don't consider this to be a malacha. Theoretically, technically, you're preparing food for Yom Tov. If somehow some guests would arrive, you would need it for Yom Tov. So technically, it's not considered a malacha. There's another opinion in the Gemara. It doesn't use the concept of hoyel, since. No, we don't say since. The fact is you're doing it for Shabbos. You're not doing it for today. You don't need it any longer for today. So what then? Shabbos and Yom Tov are really considered one continuous Kedusha, although physically they're 2 days, but since they're in close proximity, Yom Tov leading into Shabbos, it's one continuous Kedusha entity, Zman of Kedusha, and therefore technically you can be Vashla from one day to the other. So this addresses the Torah concern. So in Torah there is no malacha being done here. However, as we're going to see in the Gemara, the Rabbanan were concerned about cooking on Yom Tov for the sake of Shabbos. We'll provide 2 reasons for this, and therefore they say, don't be mavashal, bitchila, on Yom Tov for Shabbos, unless you do something to mitigate that concern. Okay, now what is that Erev Tavshilin? Cooking something before Yom Tov and setting that aside as the Erev Tavshilin, that's considered the initiation of Shabbos preparation. Then when you proceed on Yom Tov itself to continue producing for Shabbos, that's really just a culmination, it's a conclusion of that preparation which has been initiated yesterday. That's the concept behind Erev Tavshil. So you're not really starting Shabbos preparations on Yom Tov, that you can't do. But simply to conclude, to finish the process which you had already begun yesterday, that you can do. So how much do you have to prepare? Rav Machlekes. B'Shama Oimrim, Shnei Tavshilin, 2 cooked dishes. So you have a menu going, you have something chashiv, you start that before Yom Tov, that's considered a proper haschala, which allows you to conclude on Yom Tov. As long as you set aside 1 dish for Shabbos, that's enough. V'shavan, they both agree, even B'Shamai would agree. B'dog, if you have a fish, Beitzah she'alav, coated with egg, shehein shnei tavshilin, that constitutes as 2 dishes. Achlei, she'avad, suppose he set aside the Erev Tavshilin and it went missing, or he ate it. Le'ivashalav batchila, you can't use it to prepare for Shabbos. V'mishir menu kosher, you have something left over. Farshim say it's a kazayis. That's the minimum for a Erev Tavshilin, Semichal Shabbos. You can rely on it to allow you Shabbos preparations. Let's go over to Rashi on top. Yom Tov. Le'ivashal batchila. So unless you establish the Erev Tavshilin, you cannot go ahead and start preparing for Shabbos on Yom Tov. Liyas tchilas b'shulay v'yikur l'shem Shabbos. Ela l'shem Yom Tov. Yeh tchilas b'shulay. You can do it for Yom Tov. But Meshuyar, if you have anything left over, if you're lucky enough, yeh l'Shabbos. K'yotani v'azl avam avashal l'Yom Tov. U'b'lo yarabak don l'kamon. Even without using a ploy, you can actually go ahead and prepare Yom Tov food and increase its quantity with Shabbos in mind. But otherwise, you can't just start something new for Shabbos, unless you set aside something in advance. Oisa tavshil l'shem erev. By the way, you know why Erev Tavshilin is called erev? See the kasha really, because erev chatzeros is mixing. You're mixing all the residents together, creating a single residence in that chatzor, which allows you to carry throughout. Erev Tavshilin, why is it called erev? What are you mixing together? So the Rabbi asks this kasha, and he says, you're mixing together the Shabbos preparations with the Yom Tov preparations. So once you've begun preparing for Shabbos in advance, before Yom Tov, now when you sit down and do more on Yom Tov itself, it's not really considered unique Shabbos preparations because you've already begun the Yom Tov, the Shabbos preparations yesterday, so it sort of gets attributed, gets attached to today's preparations. It doesn't appear like you're ignoring Yom Tov, so to speak. It's sort of included in the melachos and food preparations of Yom Tov itself. That's why it's called Erev Tavshilin. We mix up Tavshilin just as you can cook for Yom Tov, cook for Shabbos as well. All part of the same experience. Interesting pshat. Continues the Rashi, Beitzah she'alav. So all of Bisham require 2 Tavshilin, something of significance, but fish with an egg on it is okay. Beitzah al dag shetzon oisei, they would glaze the fish with some egg while they roasted it. That's called 2 Tavshilin. Ochlei she'avad. Let's say the Erev Tavshilin goes missing. Kodim shebishel kol tzarech Shabbos, before he cooked for Shabbos, then you can no longer use the Erev Tavshilin. But if there's something left over, semichal levashel b'shvilei. Continues the Gemara. Menan Emili, how do we know this concept of Erev Tavshilin? Now, of course, we're not looking for a makar min Torah, as we explained. It's only the Rabban. But where's the hint min Torah Amar Shmuel, Makro Zochar Yom Shabbos Lekatche. We learn from here, Zochreyu, you meant to remember. Ma'acha Shabala Ashkichai. Sometimes you're prone to forget about Shabbos. It's Yom Tov today, and you're busy with celebrating Yom Tov. Perhaps you'll ignore Shabbos. You're gonna consume your main food for Yom Tov, and not leave much over for Shabbos. So you meant to do something which will encourage you and keep you mindful of the fact that Shabbos is coming up, to ensure that you properly prepare for Shabbos. Says Rashi, 3 lines from the top, Gemara. Where's the source for this concept? Says Rashi, Lav Dafka Mikro Yolav. Of course, we're not looking for a pasuk as a source of Erev Tavshilin, the Erev Tavshilin, the Rabbanon. Rather, Rabbanon look to find a support, a remez in the Torah. The pasuk says, Zochar Yom Shabbos Lekatche. What does Zochar mean? You're about to forget. No. Stay mindful. Something is meant to be forgotten. No, remember it. What's it referring to? Says Rashi, at times, you might tend to disregard Shabbos. For instance, when Yom Tov arrives, Erev Shabbos, you're busy with Yom Tov, and disregard Shabbos. Yom Tov Erev Shabbos, Karav Shabbos l'shtakeach. Why? Machmas Yom Tov, Shemar b'sudas hayayim. You're busy celebrating Yom Tov. Shabbos, perhaps you're not going to leave enough over for Shabbos. By the time Shabbos comes, you're not in the mood, you're not going to be so careful in your Shabbos preparations. Torah comes and tells us, be careful. No, don't ignore Shabbos. So this provides the support for the concept of Erev Tavshilin. Why? By establishing the Erev, you're going to keep Shabbos in the forefront of your attention. Because once you start preparing for Shabbos, you'll stay on that track. You'll make sure to continue preparing properly for Shabbos. So this is the sort of makar. You're meant to do something to ensure that you prepare enough to cover Shabbos. Continues the Gemara. My time. So now, what is the real reason? What is the concern? Why is it that you may not cook on Yom Tov without an Erev? Amar Rava K'deshi Yivroir Maniyaf Shabbos. Without an Erev Tavshil, I'm concerned that I'll consume everything on Yom Tov. I'll leave something small over for Shabbos. But by the fact that he's leaving something in advance, he's setting aside something for Shabbos before Yom Tov arrives. He's indicating that we're going to be mindful of the fact that Shabbos arrives after Yom Tov. And make sure to be boirer, money yafel Shabbos, set aside a respectable portion for Shabbos. Money yafel Yom Tov, and likewise a money yafel, a nice portion for Yom Tov. So he makes sure that he'll allot properly for both occasions. So that's what the Erev is meant to do. By setting aside something before Yom Tov, what he's saying is, don't get carried away with Yom Tov and forget Shabbos. Let's start preparing for Shabbos now. And that will keep us mindful all throughout Yom Tov. Rav Ashi Amar, unlike the previous Pshat, Rava's Pshat, that the point of Erev Tavshilin was to facilitate Kavod Shabbos, we're concerned about ignoring Shabbos. As Rav Ashi, no. It's actually meant to benefit Yom Tov. Rav Ashi Amar Kadeshi Yomru, the point of setting aside the Erev Tavshilin is that people will now realize, look, Ein Oifen Yom Tov L'Shabbos. If not for the Erev, I couldn't prepare on Yom Tov for Shabbos. It's only the Erev which allows me to do so, right? But otherwise I can't. Of course. You can't prepare on Yom Tov for a weekday. So the point of the Erev is to protect the dignity and the honor of Yom Tov. Because if we simply allow you to freely engage in Shabbos preparations on Yom Tov, you're running the risk of a fellow not differentiating and saying, look, I can cook today for tomorrow, be it Shabbos, be it a Sunday. Therefore, make the Erev Tavshilin, which It makes you mindful of the fact that you're not preparing Yom Tov for another day. It's only because of the Erev, which pretty much initiated the Yom Tov, the Shabbos preparation, that allows me to conclude on Yom Tov. I'm not really preparing for Shabbos, I'm just finishing the Achana which I already began. So according to Rav Ashi, it's to protect the cover of Yom Tov. Let's go over to Rashi. Let's pick up where we left off, which is 10 lines from the top. My time, says Rashi. Lama tiknu erev. What's the point of the erev? What's the reason for it? Krav vade lav erev mishtoi. The passage that we quoted is certainly not coming to establish the din of erev. V'lav erev mishtamimine. We don't see any mentioning of erev. That's machta ba'almu. It's just a support for the concept. But the real definition, the simple meaning of the pasuk, is a reference to Kiddush. V'chi asa kral Kiddush hayemas. San mipsach. V'zacher el hayayin. Zocher shem sham l'katshoi. It's a mitzvah of Kiddush. Ve'erev is only midrabanan. Marwa l'sakin. So what's the reason? What triggered the concern that led to Erev Tavshilin? We're concerned about ignoring Shabbos. The fact that he establishes an Erev in advance of Yom Tov. Zechas HaShabbos. It highlights the fact that Shabbos is important to keep in mind. Ve'ena machalas hakol Yom Tov, rather than depleting his entire supply of food for Yom Tov. U'boyer mana l'zeh, which will encourage him to allot a proper supply for Shabbos and proper supply for Yom Tov. So the point of the Erev is to keep Shabbos in mind. Rav Ashi Amar, no, let covered Shabbos. They knew it wasn't on account of covered Shabbos, el covered Yom Tov, to secure covered Yom Tov. Why? Look, I can't even cook today for Shabbos without that initiation from yesterday. And through the Erev, what happens is that it's only called a Gemara. I can finish what I started yesterday, but to start, I can't begin today. So Yom Tov is chashav. You don't use Yom Tov as a day of preparation for another day. Certainly, if it's Yom Tov for a weekday, you can't prepare today for a weekday. So according to Rav Ashi, it's coming to secure and safeguard the kedusha of Yom Tov. Now it's interesting, if we go back to the pasuk that we mentioned, which as Rashi explained, provided an asmachta to Erev Tavshilin, let's just stop and think for a second. We just had two reasons, Rav and Rav Ashi. How do they both fit in the pasuk? So the pasuk says, look, at times you might forget about Shabbos if you're so busy with Yom Tov. No, keep Shabbos in mind. Make sure you have enough food for Shabbos. So that works with Rav's pshat. Erev Tavshilin was there to protect Shabbos. But according to Rav Ashi, it was just the opposite. It was to protect the covenant of Yom Tov. So how does it work with the pasuk? Remember Shabbos when you're about to forget it. The point is not to remember Shabbos, the point is to remember Yom Tov. So the Ran explains, it can work even according to Rav Ashi. Rashi says, the point of Erev Tavshilin was, don't cook on Shabbos for Yom Tov. Right? Because it might lead you to cook on Yom Tov for a week. Don't cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos, because it might lead you to cook on Yom Tov for a weekday, unless you make the Erev Tavshilin, as we explained. So that's what the pasuk means. Since you may not start the cooking process on Yom Tov for Shabbos, so in this case, when Yom Tov leads into Shabbos, Shabbos is pretty much forgotten. It's off the table, because you may not prepare on Yom Tov for Shabbos. So it's bala ashkicha. It's going to be forgotten. So we see the pasuk is alluding to this concept. There's an isser to prepare on Yom Tov for Shabbos, unless you go ahead and establish this Erev, which allows you. Okay, so we had two reasons. Rava was so that you leave ample supply of food for Shabbos. Rav Ashi says to safeguard the integrity of Yom Tov. Tonight, let's take a look at our Mishnah. Oy, so tavshel Erev Yom Tov, v'semech of the Shabbos. How do you make the Erev? Set aside some tavshel before Yom Tov, and you rely on that. You build on that to continue preparing for Shabbos. Now this works according to Rav Ashi. What's the point of the Erev? So people will say, well, ein oifen miyam tov l'Shabbos. without the Erev, I may not prepare on Yom Tov for Shabbos. So that will secure the covered, safeguard the integrity of covered Yom Tov. So according to that pshat, I understand the Mishnah. Hainad me'erev Yom Tov in. Why is to prepare the Erev before Yom Tov? The Yom Tov, not Yom Tov itself. Right? That's the whole point. To show, to highlight that Yom Tov cannot prepare for Shabbos. If you began before Yom Tov, so you're just completing that process. You started preparing for Shabbos in advance. You're just completing the process. So of course the Erev has to be established before Yom Tov. If you wait till Yom Tov, it's pointless. Ela l'Rava. However, according to Rava's pshat, what was Rava's pshat? I want you to remember Shabbos. I want you to make sure that you don't consume everything on Yom Tov. You leave a mana yafal of Shabbos. Ma'ayim erev Yom Tov. So why dafka before Yom Tov? I feel Yom Tov nami. It can be just as effective if you set aside something on Yom Tov. For instance, before you sit down to have your Yom Tov meal, set aside something for Shabbos, which will keep you mindful of the fact, look, eat with moderation, eat with discipline. Make sure to allot something chasha for Shabbos as well. And Echanami says, well, you're right. According to Rava, technically, the Erev Tavshilin can be done even on Yom Tov itself. There's a concern that he might disregard it, might forget about it, because he's busy with Yom Tov celebration. Chacham establish a set procedure, do it before Yom Tov to ensure compliance. V'tana ma'islo mihacha. Although we had a mocker for Erev Tavshilin from Zohar, Yom Shabbos L'Kachay, in the following brisa we find that the Tana used a different source for Erev Tavshilin. This is a pasuk in the Midbar. When the man arrives on Friday, make sure to prepare it for Shabbos. Whatever you have to bake today. Cook what you need to cook. Why does the pasuk have to say say simply, you know what? Today, bake and cook. Why the repetitive lashon? Eifu, teifu, bashelu. Mikanam Rabbi Yehuda learns from here. This is a makar, a source, a remez, a hint for Erev Tavshilin. Ein se'ofen el afu. We're speaking that as Friday. Right? So if it's Yom Tov, Friday and Yom Tov, you can bake for Shabbos ela ala afu, unless you already have a baked item set aside before Shabbos, for aside before Yom Tov, as an Erev Tavshilin. In which case, today's baking is just a conclusion of that process. Nor can you cook on Yom Tov for tomorrow, for Shabbos, unless you have something set aside beforehand. Mikan Samchu, this is a raya. Kasam Chachamim, later of Tavshil min HaTorah, this is a remez, a source of support for Erev Tavshil. Tana Rabbanim, Mas Rabbi Yehuda, the story involving Rabbi Yehuda, Sheyoshev v'doirish kol yom kuloi b'ilchos Yom Tov. He was sitting a whole day, this was Yom Tov, and giving a shir on Hilchos Yom Tov. Suddenly, the first batch of people got up and went out to celebrate Yom Tov, to have their meal. They left the middle of the drash. Rabbi Yehuda wasn't too happy with that. Amar, he declared, hello, these fellows who left so early, Bali Pitzin. They're going to their pits in their large barrels, vats of wine. They have a lot to do today. That's why they're leaving so early. Okay, Kashnia, when the second group got up to leave, Amar, he said, oh, halalu bali chavis. These fellows apparently have barrels filled with wine. You know, a lot of time to take care of it. Gashlishis, the third group got up. Amar, he said, okay, these fellows waited out a little bit. Halalu bali kadin. Apparently their wine supply isn't so plentiful. They just have pitchers of wine. That's why they left so late. Kasser vias. Next group gets up to leave. Amar, he says, halalu bali gina. They have small containers of wine. Kas chamishis. When the fifth group got up to leave, Amar Alola Bale Koises. Oh, these only have cups of wine, so they don't have much to do today, and that's why they lingered. Once the sixth group got up to leave, that was really emptying out. Amar, he said, Alola Bale Me'irahim. He says, these fellows are deserving of a klola. He wasn't happy with the fact that his shir was totally depleted now. Nosan Ena B'Talmidim. So now he turned to the remaining Talmidim sitting there. Now they figured just the opposite, that he wasn't happy about the fact that they deprived themselves of Simchas Yom Tov. He wasn't happy with those who remained behind, who lingered. He should have left early to do Simchas Yom Tov. So his chilu pnei mishtanen. They started changing colors. They're all embarrassed, and the fact that they're sitting around and the Rebbe is not happy about it. Amar lehem, so Rebbe turns to them, Rabbi Yisai, no, you're getting the wrong impression, just the opposite. Banai, my children, loy lechem ani omer, no, I'm not complaining about you sitting here, I'm actually pretty proud of you. You held out this long. Elala lola sheyatsu, I'm upset about those that left to engage in Sudas Yom Tov. Why? Here they have Torah, eternal sustenance, and they're going to engage in food and drink. I know it's Yom Tov, but isn't this way better? They disregard eternal life. Torah, and engage in just temporary, time-related activities. Sudas Yom Tov, physical engagement. Eventually, when the Talmidim actually left to have their meal later on after the shir, so Lezer tells them, "Don't worry, go enjoy yourself." Lechu is a pasuk in Nehemiah. Lechu ichlam hashmanim. Go have your food, your delicacies, and go look out for somebody who doesn't have what to eat and send them. Don't be sad. Hashem's joy, being joyous with Hashem, engaging in Simchas Yom Tov, is your strength. So encourage them to engage in Simchas Yom Tov once the learning was done. Now, how do I understand this Gemara? Let's go back. So he wasn't happy about those that left the shir. They disregarded, they abandoned eternal life. And engaged in meals. It wasn't just a mundane meal. Simchas Yom Tov, it's a mitzvah. Rabbi Lezer Tamei, because Rabbi Lezer follows his shita. The Amar Simchas Yom Tov Rishus. Engaging in food and drink on Yom Tov is optional. The Sani. Rabbi Lezer Aimer. The only thing a person should be engaged with on Yom Tov is either one or the other. If it's on a low madrega, food and drink, that's your Simchas Yom Tov. You should sit and learn. So depending on your spiritual persuasion, if you're up to eating and drinking, that's your Simcha, go ahead. But otherwise, we expect higher of you. Sit and learn all day. That's a true Chesbas Hashem. That's a true Simchas Yom Tov. Simchas Hanasham, eternity. That's Rabbi Lezer's opinion. It's one or the other. So these Talmidim, who he knew to be on a higher level, or at least he thought so, he expected more of them. Rabbi Shua, no, compromise. Chel Keyu. Split the Yom Tov into two. Chetzel Hashem, half, is meant to be spent engaging with Hashem, davening, learning. V'chetzel Hashem, the other half, in Suda, eating and drinking. Both shitas are based on the very same pasuk. We have one pasuk which says, Yom Tov is meant for bonding with Hashem. Spiritual experience only. Because we have another pasuk which says, it's meant for your own personal pleasurable experiences. Lachem, physical experience. Okay, then, how do we resolve this apparent conflict? Rabbi Lezer Savar, he says it's one or the other. Pick your choice. Or entirely dedicated to spiritual matters, davening and learning. Or completely dedicated to physical experiences. Pick your choice. It's one or the other. Rabbi Shua Savar, it's not all or nothing. They work together very well. Half the time learning and davening, half provide physical satisfaction, which comes together, which joins together and bonds with the spiritual experiences of Yom Tov. It becomes all one package. That's called Simchas Yom Tov. Now, the pasuk says, "Go send manas, portions of food, la'ein nochen loy." My la'ein nochen loy, to a person that doesn't have it prepared. What do you mean? It's Yom Tov. Go prepare food. Go cook. Amar Rav Chizda l'mish lo yiniach eruv tavshilan. It's referring to a fellow who didn't make an eruv and he can't cook today. So him, you meant to send some food. Ikadam is another version of this halacha. Misha lo yihayalei l'niach eruv tavshilan. When it says la'ayin nachaloi, it's referring to a fellow who lo yihayalei l'niach eruv tavshilan. He had no option. He was totally preoccupied at Erev Yom Tov. He didn't have the ability to do it. So have compassion on him and provide him with his needs. Vol misha hayalei But if you know this fellow could have done Erev Tafshilin and failed to do so by his own choice, he's negligent. Don't send him anything. Don't enable this type of behavior. The pasuk continues. What does that mean? My ki chedvas Hashem himuschem. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, Hashem tells Yisrael, "Bonai, my children, even if you're short financially, it's difficult to spend on Shabbos and Yom. Don't worry, I'll compensate. I'll take care of you. Levu alai, even borrow on my account. V'kitshu kedusha hayom, and celebrate Yom Tov properly. Ve'aminu bi, and have full faith and trust in me. Bani parei, I'll pay it back." Taisa says that's only provided that he knows that he has some collateral, has some assets, which he can back up his loan with. The Marsha brings an interesting pshat. He says that the point of the pasuk is to say, look, lavu alai means spend. Not only borrow, it's not necessarily referring to dafka borrowing. Go ahead and have expenditures for Shabbos and Yom Tov. Do it without a concern. Don't worry about depleting your finances. I'll pay it up. We'll learn the Beitzah Hashem tomorrow. Shabbos and Yom Tov expenses not included in the regular budget allotted on Rosh Hashanah. Don't worry, says Hashem. Spend and spend, I'll take care of it. So another lesson from the same Amorah. If one wishes to maintain his assets, Yita ben Adar, you know what he should do? He should plant this Eder tree, some type of chash of a tree from the cedar family. So you want to make sure that everybody remembers that this is your field, this is your property. Go ahead and plant this very famous, this prominent looking tree, which everybody will notice. And it will be established as your property, in which case you'll be protected from robbery, etc. Shenemar Adar b'Amar Hashem. We have a remez in the pasuk that Adar is a lashon of Moraim. It's high, it's secure, it's safe. Inami, another pshat, Adar kishmei. You plant an Adar, and it results in securing your property, because the word Adar is interpreted as Adar. What does that mean? Kedam Rishi, as people say. My Adar. Why is it called Adar, the Adar tree? The Kaimal Dari Dari, Adar is lashon of generations. This will ensure that you maintain your property, remains yours for generations to come. Rashi explains the fact that everybody knows you have this chash of a tree, you become famous, and Yeshel Davar Koil, Rashi says, everybody knows, everybody sees it's your property, and somebody dares to rob you of your property, you always come back and reclaim it because it's common knowledge. This is your property. Tanami, we have the same in a price. Soda sheish eder, a field which features this type of tree. Ein nixelis, won't be robbed. Ein nechmeses, won't be forcibly sold. Uperesemish daman, and its produce will be safeguarded. Rashi explains, according to one shot, they used to use this eder tree to create a gather, a border around the field, which keeps it safe from intruders. Okay, so what do we learn today? Sending gifts on Yom Tov is mutter, according to Shami, only for Tzarech Yom Tov, according to Silal, as long as it's right to be used the way it is, even not on Yom Tov. For instance, by Tefillin. We have one exception, sandal sumar, this pegged sandal which may not be worn on Yom Tov or Shabbos, cannot be sent around, lest you run the risk of having somebody actually wear it on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Regarding wearing tefillin on Shabbos and Yom Tov, typically you don't, but to keep it shomer, you're allowed to. If it's completely shomer as is, leave it alone. If it's completely exposed, you can even pick it up, put it on, and bring it home. If it has one element, not the other, it's shomer from klovim but not from ganavim, says Abaye, well, to pick it up, we don't allow. But if you wear and get it ready, just leave it on until you get home. We're going to have Erev Tafshilin, which allows you to continue the preparations, Shabbos preparations on Yom Tov. So once you initiate it before Yom Tov, you can continue on Yom Tov itself. According to Bisham, you need 2 Tafshilin. According to Bisham, 1's enough. What is the reason for Erev Tafshilin? Rabbi says to ensure kavod Shabbos. What the Erev does is it keeps you mindful of the fact that Shabbos is coming up. You have to prepare for it, anticipate it. Don't use up everything for Yom Tov. According to Rav Ashi, he's come to protect kavod Yom Tov. It's sending home a message. You can't do things on Yom Tov for a weekday. If you can't even do it for Shabbos, certainly not for the weekday. Only if you make an Erev, in which case you're just concluding the Achana which you began yesterday. How does one fulfill Simchas Yom Tov? According to Blazer, Kulu Lashem or Kulu Lachem. According to Yeshua, half and half. Chetzel Hashem, Chetzel Lachem. You know, Mishabura writes about the Chazonim that are Marich B'Tfilah, having a good time at the expense of the Gila, have to endure their hours and hours long Tfilah. He says that's Loi Chetzel Hashem and Loi Chetzel Lachem. Kol to you and much Hatzlach.